Okay, we are recording and we are live on YouTube.
Go. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. This is the Monday, August 17th meeting of the Town of Unicoi Board of Mayor and Alderman. Mr. Linville, Lois, if you will lead us in the invocation, and then Mr. Linville, if you will lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
And we pray, oh God, we thank you for this beautiful day in Unicoi. We thank you for the opportunity to be about working on the town's business. We pray that you'll be here with us, that you'll guide, and direct us, and that everything that is said and done here will be pleasing in thy sight. In the name I pray, amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting, subject to board approval, will allow members to participate electronically or by other means. Citizens wishing to submit comments to the Board of Mayor and Alderman may do so by submitting comments on the Town of Unicoi website by mailing to the following address: P.O. Box 39, Unicoi, Tennessee 37692. Calling the Town of Unicoi at 423-735-0517 and or by dropping off at the Town Hall drop box located at the Unicoi Drive vestibule. We will have the roll call, and as they call your name, please answer here. I can see participants and I can hear participants.
Alderman Boland. Here, I can see participants and I can hear participants. Alderman Radford.
Here, I can see participants, I can hear participants.
Alderman Linville.
Here, I can see participants, I can hear participants.
Vice Mayor Hobson.
Here, I can see participants, I can hear participants.
Mayor Lynch.
Here, I can see participants, I can hear participants. Board of Mayor and Alderman consider this necessity of meeting electronically to protect public health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Board of Mayor and Alderman adopted executive orders and procedures for meeting electronically. And I would need a motion on that.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any question? Call.
Alderman Boland.
Yes.
Alderman Radford.
Yes.
Alderman Linville.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hobson.
Yes.
Mayor Lynch.
Yes. Item 7, Lois Schultz Davis will review the meeting etiquette for virtual meetings.
Mr. Mayor, the meeting etiquette remains the same, the primary, and we've gone over there several times in your packets, both printed and electronic. But the prime points are, in order for people to be understood, those appearing from remote distance, please keep their mute button on until such time as they are to speak, and then unmute themselves, and also participants appearing remotely, please refrain from talking over each other.
Okay, thank you. Item 8 is the approval of the July 20th, 2020 BMA meeting minutes. You should have those in your packet. I will entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call for question.
Alderman Boland.
Yes.
Alderman Radford.
Yes.
Alderman Linville.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hobson.
Yes.
Mayor Lynch.
Yes. All righty. We have item 9 is the mayoral proclamation. proclamation of the town of Unicoi, Tennessee, in the office of Mayor Johnny Lynch, recognizing September 2020 as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network 20th anniversary. I will now read it. Town of Unicoi proclamation from the office of Mayor, Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, September 2020, ESPN 20th anniversary. Whereas suicide is one of the most disruptive, tragic events a family and a community can experience, with more than 1,100 lives lost in Tennessee each year, and an estimated 25 attempted suicides for each suicide death. Whereas suicide is the 9th leading cause of all deaths in Tennessee, the 2nd leading cause of death among youth ages 10 to 24, and the 1st leading cause for children ages 10 to 17. And whereas more than 3 lives a day are lost to suicide in Tennessee, which means we lose 22 Tennesseans each week and 97 people per month. Whereas Tennessee veterans, active duty military, and National Guardsmen face a disappropriate risk compared to the general population, with more dying from suicide than combat. And whereas public awareness of this tragic problem is the key to preventing further suffering and loss of life, the risk for human self-destruction can be reduced through awareness, education, and treatment, as the highest risk for suicide is amongst the survivors of those who died by suicide or those who attempted suicide. Excuse me. Whereas suicide prevention has been declared a state priority by the governor, and the Tennessee legislature has declared teen suicide prevention as a state priority in partnership with the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network to implement the Tennessee strategy for suicide prevention. And whereas Tennessee is a national leader in the effort to prevent suicide, being one of the first states to develop a suicide prevention and evaluation plan covering the lifespan. And whereas the governor of Tennessee has appointed a Suicide Prevention Network Advisory Council to coordinate the implementation of the Tennessee strategy for suicide prevention. And whereas the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network is a grassroots collaboration of Tennesseans and organizations working to eliminate the stigma of suicide, educate the community about the warning signs of suicide, and ultimately reduce the rate of suicide in our state. Whereas 2020 marks the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network 20th year of dedicated efforts to reach every Tennessean in every county. And whereas every member of our community should understand that throughout life's struggles, we all need occasional reminder that we are all silently fighting our own battles. And whereas we encourage all Tennesseans to take the time to inquire as to the well-being of their family, friends, and genuinely convey their appreciation for their existence by any gesture they deem appropriate. A simple phone call, message, handshake, or a hug can go a long way towards helping someone realize that suicide is not the answer. And therefore, I, Johnny Lynch, Mayor of the town of Unicoi, do hereby proclaim September 2020 as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month in the town of Unicoi, Tennessee, and do urge all citizens to work to prevent suicide and to raise awareness and tolerance all around all people affected by this tragedy. We'll move on to item 10. Item 10 will be a proclamation of the town of Unicoi, Tennessee, on the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the Women's Suffrage Amendment, August 18, 1920. Proclamation of the town of Unicoi, Tennessee, 100th anniversary of ratification of the Women's Suffrage Amendment, August 18, 1920. Whereas August 18, 1920, Tennessee became the 36th state to ratify the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, making said amendment the the United States, and whereas the 19th Amendment reads as follows: the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this historic event and the manner in which Tennessee contributed to its important guarantee of basic rights of women as American citizens. Now therefore, I, Johnny Lynch, Mayor of the town of Unicoi, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim August the 18th, 2020 to be Women's Suffrage Day within the town of Unicoi, Tennessee, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideas of the 19th Amendment. In witness thereof, I hereto set my hand and cause to be affixed the seal of the town of Unicoi on this 18th day of August in the year of our Lord, 2020, and the 244th year of our independence. Lois, you want to add anything to that?
No, but I appreciate the town and how you're recognizing that holiday. I think it's not very often we get to celebrate the 100th anniversary. of
Absolutely.
anything, and,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think women being able to vote is something that has been certainly a long sought after right for women, and something that has bettered our society. So,
I saw a special on the History Channel the other day of the story. That's really an interesting story, how that all came about.
well, in Tennessee, it's very interesting the part that Tennessee played in that.
Item 11, old business, is ordinance 2020-276. This is the second reading and public hearing of ordinance 2020-276, an ordinance modifying ordinance 2012-219, establishing regulations governing retail liquor stores in the town of Unicoi, Tennessee. Excuse me. Lois, would you read that? Would you read that for me?
Ordinance number 2020-276, an ordinance modifying ordinance 2012-219, establishing regulations governing retail liquor stores in the town of Unicoi, Tennessee. Whereas the citizens of the town of Unicoi voted in a referendum allowing the operation of off-premises retail liquor stores within the town of Unicoi, and upon certification by the election commission, town residents have approved the operation of such package stores. And whereas the Board of Mayor and Aldermen has the responsibility and authority to establish guidelines and regulations for an off-premises retail liquor store, governing those components of a certificate of compliance and other requirement allowed through the Tennessee Code. And whereas ordinance 2012-219 provided in part as follows: Section A-2083F. A retailer must currently be a resident of the state of Tennessee and must have been a resident of Tennessee for 2 years immediately preceding the date of the application is filed. Whereas by governing case law issued since 2012, such Tennessee residence requirement is not permitted. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the town of Unicoi, Tennessee, that Title 8, Chapter 2, Intoxicating Liquors in the Unicoi Municipal Code be amended to delete the former Section 8-208, and changing former Section 8-208, G, to Section 8-201, F, in all other respects, ordinance 2012-219 shall remain the same. This ordinance shall take effect from and after its final passage, the public welfare requirement.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Call the question.
Alderman Boyd,
Yes.
Alderman Radford,
Yes.
Alderman Linville,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Watson,
Yes.
Mayor Lynch.
Yes. Go down to item 12, unfinished business. 2020-277, an ordinance to further regulate parking on public rights of way within the town of Unicoi, Tennessee. To repeal ordinance 2015-244 was tabled at July 20th, 2020 meeting, BMA meeting. So we need a motion to untable this ordinance 2020-277.
I make a motion to untable it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to untable this ordinance. Any further discussion? Call for the question.
Alderman Bowen.
Yes.
Alderman Radford.
Yes.
Alderman Linville.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hobson.
Yes.
Mayor Lynch.
Yes. And Lois, again, if you will, go ahead and read this ordinance for us.
Ordinance 2020-277, an ordinance to further regulate parking on public rights of way within the town of Unicoi, Tennessee, and to repeal ordinance 2015-244. Whereas it is appropriate for the town of Unicoi Board of Mayor and Aldermen to provide for regulations to promote the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of the town of Unicoi, Tennessee, and to provide for safe and secure travel in the town and in and around highways in the town. Now therefore be it ordained that ordinance 10-201 is amended as follows. Section 5 is replaced by new section 5A. It is hereby prohibited and decreed to be a violation of this ordinance except as set forth herein. For any motor vehicle is defined within the statutes of the state of Tennessee, incorporated into the ordinances in the town of Unicoi, Tennessee, to park on the public rights of way within the town of Unicoi unless parking in an area designated by the town of Unicoi for public parking. Subsection B, the prohibition set out in section 5A will extend beyond the paved right of way, the full extent and edge of the right of way dedicated to the town of Unicoi or the state of Tennessee. Former section 5 is now new section 6. The penalty for each violation of this ordinance shall be punishable as a class C misdemeanor with a fine of up to $50 plus town of Unicoi municipal court costs. Former section 6 is now section 7. All other provisions of ordinance 10-201 except as modified herein shall remain in full force and effect. Section 8, ordinance 2015-244 is hereby repealed. This ordinance shall take effect from and after its final passage, the public welfare requirement. And Mayor, if I might add, this has been tabled so that there could be a checking on various sections. I believe it was Alderman Bullen's question about why were we taking out section 5. In reviewing the signed copies of the ordinances, it turned out that we have another ordinance relating to large truck traffic. And I think perhaps in a former version, there had been something about large truck traffic put in the first draft, but then it was removed in the final one that was passed because that section was dealt with in another ordinance. So that's the reason for that confusion about section 5. And what's been done here is to correct some inconsistencies in some of the ordinances that have been pointed out in the codification process. When this was done before, 2015-244 wasn't repealed, and so this makes it all consistent in the section, the former section 5A that, in a prior draft of the former ordinance that Alderman Bowen pointed out is covered in another section, in another ordinance.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve ordinance 2020-277.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Call for the question.
Alderman Bowen.
Yes.
Alderman Radford.
Yes.
Alderman Linville.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hobson.
Yes.
Mayor Lynch.
Yes. Okay, our next item is item 13, new business. It's ordinance 2020-278. First reading and consideration of ordinance 2020-278, an ordinance of the town of Unicoi adopting and enacting a codification and revision of the ordinances of the town of Unicoi, Tennessee. Lois, I am for sure gonna turn this one over to you, because it's rather long, and I'm not sure exactly what all we got to read on it.
Ordinance 2020-278, an ordinance adopting and enacting a codification revision of the ordinances of the town of Unicoi, Tennessee. Whereas certain ordinances of the town of Unicoi have been replaced or have become obsolete, and whereas it is appropriate to periodically recodify the ordinances of the town of Unicoi. And whereas the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the town of Unicoi, Tennessee has caused its ordinances of general, continuing, and permanent application or of a penal nature to be codified and revised, and the same are embodied in a code of ordinances known as the Uniform Municipal Code. Now therefore, be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the town of Unicoi, Tennessee, that Section 1, ordinances codified. The ordinances of the town of a general, continuing, and permanent application or of a penal nature is codified and revised in the following titles, namely Title 1 to 20, both inclusive, are ordained and adopted as the Unicoi Municipal Code, hereinafter referred to as the Municipal Code. Section 2, ordinances repealed. All ordinances of a general, continuing, permanent application or of a penal nature not contained in the Municipal Code are hereby repealed from and after the effective date of said code, except as otherwise provided in Section 3. Below. Section 3, ordinances saved from repeal. The repeal provided for in Section 2 of this ordinance shall not affect any offense or act committed or done, or any penalty or forfeiture incurred, or any contract or right established or accruing before the effective date of the municipal code. Any ordinance or resolution promising or requiring the payment of money by or to the town, or authorizing the issuance of any bonds or other evidence of said town's indebtedness. Any appropriation ordinance or ordinance providing for the levy of taxes, or any budget ordinance. Any contract or obligation assumed by or in favor of said town. Any ordinance establishing a social security system or providing coverage under that system. Any administrative ordinances or resolutions not in conflict or inconsistent with provisions of this code. The portion of any ordinance not in conflict with such code which regulates speed, direction of travel, passing, stopping, yielding, standing, or parking on any specifically named public street or way. Any right or franchise granted by the town. Any ordinance dedicating, naming, establishing, locating, relocating, opening, paving, widening, vacating, etc., any street or public way. Any ordinance establishing and prescribing the grade of any street. Any ordinance providing for local improvements and special assessments therefore. Any ordinance dedicating or accepting any plat or subdivision. Any prosecution, suit, or other proceeding pending, or any judgment rendered on or prior to the effective date of said code. Any zoning ordinance or amendment thereto, or amendment to the zoning map, nor shall such repeal affect any ordinance annexing territory to the town. Section 4, continuation of existing provisions. Insofar as the provisions of the municipal code are the same as those of ordinances existing and in effect on its effective date, said provision shall be considered to be continuations thereof and not as new enactments. Section 5, penalty clause. Unless otherwise specified in a title, chapter, or section of the municipal code, including the codes and ordinances adopted by reference, whenever in the municipal code any act is prohibited or is made or declared to be a civil offense, or whenever in the municipal code the doing of an act is required or the failure to do so, any act is declared to be a civil offense. The violation of any such provision of the municipal code shall be punished by civil penalty of not more than $50 and costs for each separate violation, provided, however, that the imposition of a civil penalty under the provisions of this municipal code shall not prevent the revocation of any permit or license, or the taking of other punitive or remedial action where called for or permitted under the provisions of the municipal code or other applicable law. In any place in the municipal code the term, it shall be a misdemeanor, or it shall be an offense, or it shall be unlawful, or similar term appears in the context of a penalty provision of this municipal code, it shall mean it shall be a civil offense. Anytime the word fine or similar term appears in the context of a penalty provision of this municipal code, it shall mean civil penalty. Each day any violation of the municipal code continues shall constitute a separate civil offense. Section 6, severability clause. Each section, subsection, paragraph, sentence, and clause of the municipal code, including the codes and ordinances adopted by reference, is hereby declared to be separable and severable. The invalidity of any section, subsection, paragraph, sentence, or clause in the municipal code shall not affect the validity of any other portion of said code, and only any portion declared to be invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction shall be deleted therefrom. Section 7, reproduction and amendment of code. The municipal code shall be reproduced in a loose leaf form. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen by motion or resolution shall fix and change from time to time as considered necessary the prices to be charged for copies of the municipal code and revisions thereto. After adoption of the municipal code, each offense affecting the code shall be adopted as amending, adding, or deleting by numbers specific chapters or sections of said code. Periodically thereafter, all effective pages of the municipal code shall be revised to reflect such amended, added, or deleted material and shall be distributed to town officers, employees having copies of said code, and to other persons who have requested and paid for such current revisions. Notes shall be inserted at the end of amended or new sections referring to the numbers of ordinances, making the amendments or adding the new provisions, and such references shall be cumulative if a section is amended more than once, in order that the current copy of the municipal code will contain references to all ordinances responsible for current provisions. One copy of the municipal code is originally adopted, and one copy of each amending ordinance thereafter adopted shall be furnished to the Municipal Technical Advisory Service immediately upon final passage and adoption. Section 8, construction of conflicting provisions. Where any provision in the municipal code is in conflict with any other provision in said code, the provision which establishes the higher standard for promotion and protection of the public health, safety, and welfare shall prevail. Section 9, code available for public use. A copy of the municipal code shall be kept available in the recorder's office for public use and inspection at all reasonable times. Section 10, date of effect. This ordinance shall take effect from and after its final passage, the public welfare requirement, and the municipal code, including all the codes and ordinances therein adopted by reference, shall be effective on and after that date. And by way of explanation, this is a general codification ordinance that's required any time that we redo the ordinances in a new code. This is applied to us by the UTAS folks who work on the codification.
I will entertain a motion.
Motion approved. Motion approved, second, whatever.
You know, I'll say,
Okay, Alderman Bolt, motion approved, and seconded by Alderman Lidwell. Any further discussion?
Let me ask, is this something similar to, remember Pat Hardian's updating our codes and all that for 2 years, whatever? I guess we're still working on it now, but.
This is what enables them to do that.
The very last sentence on section 7 says, one copy of the municipal code as originally adopted and one copy of each amending ordinance thereafter adopted shall be furnished to MTAS immediately upon final passage and adoption. That is the responsibility of the city recorder, and it will be integrated into what they've codified, correct? Right. It'll be an ongoing process. Is there an ongoing fee to MTAS?
Well, they do it every so often, and we hadn't for some time sent them the documents or made it possible for them to finish it up. Once they codify it, it's that way until we send them more stuff. And I don't know how it got to be that it was this length of time before they did a complete recodification, but they charge a fee for that every year. I guess it may not have been budgeted paid.
I believe it's been 7 years since the last one.
I would agree.
And the ordinances were all sent to them after I started. And they're just waiting on this. They wanted to include this liquor store and the parking. So at the next reading on the parking and the codification, those were the last 2 ordinances to be included. So
Then we're budgeting at $4,000 or whatever, $2,000 a year to get that all up to before you.
that was, it must have been budgeted in the previous year.
Like
2 or 3 previous years.
we budgeted, they said Pat agreed, so we paid 2 payments, $2,000 1 year, 2,000 next year, see how it. Is that what the guy was from, student was having to do?
Fernando?
Yeah.
Fernando was, he may have helped out with some of that. Yeah, I think he was putting everything on flash drive so that it could be put on the website, the ordinances, and that sort of thing.
Any further discussion? Call the question.
Alderman Bullock,
Yes.
Alderman Radford,
Yes.
Alderman Linville.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hobson,
Yes.
Mayor Lynch.
Yes. This is down to committee, the Health Board. A disaster and emergency plan railroad safety by Mayor Hobson.
That's report I've been ordered, getting her more about replacing. It hurt me. Everybody's sick.
I don't think there's any council to do.
I was talking about it, so interview and
Supposed to have, we're supposed to have a recommendation being made.
Cleanup committee, Alderman Linda.
Nothing on that.
Unicoi business alliance, Alderman Linda.
Yeah, the physical trail challenge was canceled. It was too challenging to travel for it all. We are going to be doing a virtual food drive in conjunction with Sid and Harvest Food Bank, and it can be accessed online.
Yes, information will be in Wednesday's newspaper, the Irwin Record, will be going out to the rest of the media that day as well. It'll start September 1 for the entire month of September, and there'll be a place on the website where they can go, and it'll have a link, and it takes it to a system within the Second Harvest Food Bank's website. And all the credit will go, like, when they donate, it will let them know that it came from Unicoi, that it came from our drive.
This is actually a new concept, isn't it? I think we're one of the first.
The platform I found out is an older platform that they haven't used in a while. They weren't able right away to update the platform. So we're kind of bringing this platform back. We're going to be the first groups that has used that in a very long time. So.
Thank you. History committee, Pat Lynch is not here. I will say that they did get the roof patched down at the cabin. Right there.
And it's still leaking a little bit. They take them Saturday and Sunday out there, hard rain, still leaking. They get back on it. They would take 7 hours. Good.
First Tennessee Human Resources Agency.
Down there, they till I believe it.
Planning Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals.
See, we met, August the 10th, there's no new business, the only other business, discussion to follow up on the asphalt plant located at 320 Billbar Road. We need to put a motion now for a public meeting with GDAPC by request of the County Unicoi Planning Commission, concerned citizens, so we get heard nothing back on that. Or new business on the asphalt. I don't understand it, but it's on the field here to discuss and review the sign location, site plan for the submission by Harvest Kitchen, located off the building place in Route 173. A variance is requested from Article 4, Section 49-5-3, which prohibits the placement of any sign in public right of way. We discussed that. It will be, I think, at least we'll be bringing it back board on the 7th. We need the board with a motion and we granted the variance, but subject to the site plan approval by the planning commission. So she bring the site plan approval back. September 7th for final approval. So we get that there on the side.
All right, thank you, Greg. Decorating committee. I'll just need to report on that. Animal welfare board, got the board.
We haven't met in months since all this COVID stuff started. I know they're emailing out numbers. I don't see them in our packet here right now. I don't think numbers are what they ever have been. It's been a struggle to operate. One of the part-time employees also works as a CNA long-term care, and she had been working and she was positive. So that caused a big uproar. Everybody had to get tested. So these people
for me, so it's just a constant battle with a constant battle. Who did she work? I don't know. Elizabeth, Elizabeth.
COVID things, touch pressure. 911 board. That's the part of it. Mount Harvest Kitchen, Lee Manning, Lee with us.
Hello, Lee Manning.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so I stuck a couple of pages at everyone's desk for the BMA meeting today. In July, the Mountain Harvest Kitchen was rented for 160 hours to 7 processing members. So that's an average of 40 hours per week. It was a pretty big month for us. So I included the month-to-month comparison so you can see how it looks from year to year. It was an 88% increase over July of last year and about a 30% increase from last month even. So that's pretty good. Down towards the bottom of the page, there's just a snapshot of the booking calendar and what that looked like from July compared to last July. So each of those squares, that's a unique booking from a client. So you can see on some of the days, we have 2-3 people working at a time. So the kitchen committee, we're discussing ways to sort of manage that space and time more efficiently as we're growing. So a good challenge to have. On page 2 of that report, there's a breakdown of the types of products that the MHK members are making out of the kitchen. So sorry, I thought I printed in color there, but if you can't read that one on the bottom left, it's prepared meals, about 20%. 20% of our products are food truck type. The most common user is catering, baked goods, chocolate, spice rubs, and then sauces. So that's just the type of product. That's not so much the hours rented, but I just kind of wanted to share the types of users that we have currently. And then I also thought it'd be nice to share where they're selling their products. There is some overlap in that. So, someone might be selling to corporate clients, but also selling online or at farmers markets. But I just think that that's a nice chart to see where they are. It's just a snapshot of what's going on right now. And then the last thing I wanted to update on was the power grant. So we've been talking about that the last couple of meetings. Heck, really, we've been talking about that since I started because that's been our ongoing project. We purchased the lab equipment in this last month, so that's on track. The next, there will be a large bid package that will go out scheduled for next week that includes some mixers, additional work tables to accommodate those multiple users, and just some additional items for them to be able to work more efficiently. So after that, we're gonna, Doug already spoke to the sign and the progress there. So that's a sign that we're trying to place at the end of Unicoi Village Place for people to see the Mountain Harvest Kitchen, as well as the Visitor Center, other Town of Unicoi places. And then after that, we'll be done with the power grant. And so that officially closes the end of October. That is what I have, but if you have any questions, let me know.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Let me back up to the 911. I noticed that we didn't have anything on accident. Jeff, would you like to tell them the good news about the ambulance stuff?
Yeah, the ambulance, Unicoi County ambulance is supposed to go live next Monday. The only thing we were waiting on was getting the inspection on the ambulances and the supplies. That was supposed to occur late last week. You're not taking on that. But they hired the administrative assistant, being trained. everything's ready to go.
Did we pay them half of that, if they are, they bill us half of that?
57% of it, yeah.
They did ask for that amount, yes.
I saw some of the ambulances out there.
Have we paid that yet? Okay. I wonder if the county's paid for it. There's no more than that.
Their check was mailed today.
Okay. So we're ready to go, financially, everything's good to go.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Parks and recreation, tourism and public relations.
Well, really, the most that we can update on as far as the events that we're having with COVID right now, everything has been canceled through October, except for the farmers market and community yard sale. That does happen every Tuesday, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the visitor center. We are under very strict COVID guidelines. So masks are required, extra tables in between the vendor and the customer. So all of that's going really well. We had over the past 4 markets, anywhere from 3 to 5 farm vendors per week, anywhere from 2 or 3 craft vendors. We had a food truck occasionally come. You guys all have the stats there in your packets. And the customers, we're kind of seeing a fluctuation week to week, depending on the COVID numbers. I'm not sure if a lot of people are kind of afraid to come out, or I do know that we've had a lot of people that have walked away at the gate because they are not happy with the mask order. So we just tell them we can provide them a mask. If they don't want that, then they often get in their cars and leave. So our numbers kind of fluctuate anywhere from topping out at 75 to as low as about 40. Our Movies in the Park summer movie series, all dates were eventually canceled. We kept trying, but what really got us was mostly the weather, because with COVID, an event like that is already naturally social distance. But the problem was if it rains, we would take them under the porch at the cabin, and we couldn't do that. So we ended up having to cancel quite a few times, not only because of COVID, but because of the weather. So we are working right now. We've got some approval to do it. We're seeing if some logistics can be accomplished. We've got a few people involved, and we're working on a drive-in movie up at the visitor center. So we're hoping more information will come about that very soon. As I said, it's kind of a work in progress. We're just trying to make sure everything will work. As Jeff said, the Pinnacle Trail Challenge has been canceled, and we are going to be doing that virtual food drive that'll start in September 1. And one more thing to add about that is they did assure me, if people aren't comfortable giving over the internet and don't want to do that, they can give over the phone, and it can be mailed. So we'll have more information on how, the different ways that they can donate. It'll hit the Irwin Record Wednesday, and then should hit the newspapers the next day. So that's all on that one. I do have some good news about the caboose. Mayor, I think you're going to be very happy. I got a phone call last night from Tyler Lynch, and he attached the smokestacks and welded it officially to the point that it can't move. It can't go anywhere now. The only thing he didn't have need time to finish there was getting the grates cut off, but we can get that done. The deadline was today for all paint quotes, so I'll be going over those with the mayor here in the next few days to see how we're going to proceed on that. So we are starting to see some activity there, and I know we're all excited about that. As far as the website is, the website revamp, we are still working on that. We are hopefully going to be bringing on an intern here in the next couple of weeks through MTAS, and she'll be helping us get that finished and launched. The only other thing I can report on is that we did go ahead and submit the Small Town America's Civic Volunteer Award nominations, and we nominated both the Ruatan and the fire department. So the results on that will be out October 1st, hopefully somewhere around there. So keep your fingers crossed that our two groups, at least one of our two groups wins it.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thanks.
So we will be able to start the bids, and you think bids will be in, been getting any bids yet on it?
Bids for painting. Well, they're not actually bids. We're not doing the sealed bid process because it doesn't hit the threshold to have to require that. So they're just quotes. But yes, we will have at least 2 for the mayor to go over. We had a third that was scheduled to come and give a quote. He did not show up. I sat up there for about 45 minutes and finally left a message on somebody's voicemail that said I wasn't going to sit there any longer, and I've never heard back from that company. So unfortunately, but we did get approval through Lois to just do 2 quotes, correct? We did attempt to get more. It's just this COVID thing. They had, I mean, it was after hours anyway when they were going to be able to come to look at it. They're very busy. But we should have at least 2 quotes for him to look at.
Like, when you get those quotes, that's what we do then.
I was just going to be presenting them to you probably tomorrow, and then we'll decide how to proceed from there. And whoever,
For the board,
I was told it did not have to go before the board.
pardon us,
We'll have to look at the financial aspect of it, because I don't know what the quotes are, but,
they're over a certain amount, we got to bring it forward.
yeah, but they shouldn't. They should have hearing.
All righty, police department, police chief Andy Slagle.
I give
That was the man.
y'all a little packet there. That's some of the stuff we've been since last BMA meeting. That's only the things that's on there is the things that we reported. It's not all the costs that those what the costs would take. I'm not it's a lot of stuff we don't do reports on, but this is the thing that we did reports on. Some of the next thing right here is what we've been doing dollars per day, stuff like that. Some stuff is zero, like dispatch calls, it's called dispatch, just the stats from the year-to-date stat where we made 64 arrest cases. August been extremely busy. Next one is we go free for a grant. The email we got for the NCI say grant. And since last BMA, made 12 arrests, 5 in felony, 46 vehicle accidents since last BMA. Actually, since last BMA, been 2 vehicle pursuits. And we got 3 DUIs. I would think 2 of those DUIs were part of the vehicle pursuits. They're actually between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the day. To all warranty. There was a guy put it down on officers up in the beauty spa area on they put it down on 4 shirt bacon. They got the pursuit, chased them everywhere all night, one night, and then the next day, following their arrest. Myself, that was pretty big. So that's our report. We've been very busy.
Sounds like it. Good job.
Been very, very busy. We can get a lot of positive comments.
Thank you, Jay.
It's been good. Been good. Okay, good.
Mayor, may I ask a question? Chief Slagle, are these first 4 sheets here, or maybe 5 sheets? Are these documents that are generated through the court witnesses?
Yes. Yeah, our court, and that's like what you'll see on this right here. A lot of this stuff like on traffic stuff will be like, you did something, do any traffic stuff or anything. Now we just started doing using the computers in the car and stuff like that, so we can get a lot more of these accurate reports. Where I can go back and find anything. Well, now we're pretty much all courtwork. We're all with the courtwork system. So I mean, it's very, very good. I think this Rhonda's calling to it too, and it's great system work between both of us. That's why we can be able to pull up some of these reports. But like I said, it says, we've had 82 cases. That don't mean we've had 82 calls. I'm saying we've probably had over 200 calls. But, service. This is, we've done 82 reports. So yeah, go ahead.
that's under that system allows us to follow it. So we don't have to install the tracks. You know, there's paper on it, that's what we, but it's all like that. Right in front of us. Really nice.
It says 150 reports, but a lot of it's miscellaneous. Like some of these reports where there's no violation, no offender name, that's miscellaneous reports and no crime reports. We just did, but there's one of them where a tree fell on the car, two of miscellaneous reports, stuff like that. But it's really good stuff we got going on.
All right, thank you. Municipal court report, Deborah Kessler.
Okay, this news report is for court date, August the 4th. And we are using the courtware reports. This is, that's what I'm using for the court report. We had 4 violations, proof of insurance, 2 running stop signs, and 26 speeding, and 2 fire lane parking, and 2 hands-free device, and 2 light law violations. So the total amount of the fines and fees were $4,132. So far, we've had $3,270 paid, with a balance of $862.
What was that last offense you mentioned?
It was light law.
Like, I'm not.
Headlights.
I just
Light law.
heard, and I couldn't make
Yeah.
sense of it. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Deborah, you want to go on into the report?
Okay. I'll just give a brief update on some of these grants. I mentioned last time the Buffalo Valley Connector Grant was extended to January 2022. So right now, what we have due for September 2020 is to submit plans, specs, and all acquisition completed notice. And then in October, we should have approval of plans. And we'll go from there and have a bid opening in November of 2020. And then we will award the pre-construction till December 2020, start construction January 2021. So Buffalo Valley Connector Grant. An update on the amphitheater. Year to date, we have spent $27,800 in engineering costs with Yale and Associates and First Tennessee Development. We've received grant reimbursement, $24,300. And we're waiting the redesign on the stage from concrete to wood. And this is just a reminder that, you know, our land is the match. This is a 100% reimbursement grant.
100% correct.
And so that's always good to have. On the RW Bridge project, last Friday, we received from Joe Workman the right of way and easement exhibits and descriptions for the RW Bridge replacement project. These will be used by City Attorney Lewis Schultz Davis to generate the deeds that will be signed by the property owners for the acquisition of property. The town will need to obtain all of these land areas in order to proceed with bidding and construction of the project.
We've been reimbursed.
Yes, the town has spent so far $42,562 for their engineering costs. We have additional engineering costs of $18,738, which totals $61,300. And this will wrap up the engineering phase where the project goes out to bid. And the town at that point will be able to receive 100% reimbursement from TDOT for the out-of-pocket cost of $61,300.
We can say can make it into his after they start, or
We can't get reimbursed until the bids go out. Indian Creek Bridge, I don't have an update on that. I have not heard anything on that. And I think Lee gave you all an update on the ARC grant in her presentation. We did a Zoom meeting on July the 31st with Tennessee Cares grant, which will provide reimbursement for any COVID-19 related expenditures that we've had. I'm going to use some examples like plexiglass and the masks that we had made. Anything, COVID related that we have spent. You can also do deep cleaning, which we will probably do. The grant will provide reimbursement for equipment that we need to do these electronic meetings. Because it looks like this is the way it's going to be for a while, so we can get a computer and a flat screen or something to make it a little bit easier than what we're using right here on a box. And so that would be nice, and that's all reimbursed. The only stipulation about these purchases or whatever, it could not be anything that was already budgeted, which our budget was done in March and April, so we're just getting into the COVID thing then. But so anything between March 2020 to December 2020, we need to purchase something related to the situation that we're in, and get reimbursed. Our reimbursement for the county Unicoi would be up to $56,000. On July the 31st, John Eskew from UTMTS came to Town Hall and did a municipal court clerk boot camp training with Wanda, and she's completed 3 other classes in municipal court training. She's also completed training in Edison. This is for her to be the administration benefits coordinator. That's the same training that I have, so she will be the backup for that. She'll also take another class, which will be a HIPAA training. So she will be able to talk with the employees about insurance. So she's scheduled August 28th to meet with each employee to go over insurance.
That'd be great. It'd be great to understand what they've got.
Right.
Right.
Well, this will also be the Liberty National and Aflac, which allows them to purchase additional insurance as well. And then on August the 12th, the mayor, Wanda, and myself, we had a Zoom meeting with several representatives with TEMA, which is Tennessee Emergency Management Agency. We began compiling information for a hazardous mitigation plan covering various projects. This hazardous mitigation plan includes Irwin, Unicoi County, and the town of Unicoi. We submitted our plan today, and we will await approval on that. Upcoming projects. The mayor and I had talked with Terry Haynes just last week, and he told us that he'd been released to go back to work, and he actually came by today. So Doug and Terry and I had a nice little meeting. It was really unplanned, but we discussed finishing the paving for Whispering Pines, which, as I recall, that was about $20,000 to complete that road. Then we'll stripe it. He's got, equipment issues, so that's been also a delay. Trucks are an issue. He's going to have to lease some trucks. Of course, the asphalt will be coming from Bloodville, which will be an added cost for the town. I don't know how much, but we will also we'll put in a work order today to pave Oval Road, which had been on our list as one of the worst roads, but we kind of got turned down from FEMA on. That paving will come out of that $108,938 grant that we got from Governor Lee. And we also discussed the Massachusetts drainage issue with trying to make some improvements there that will also come out of that grant. And then we also had Washington Street as part of that as well, paving. And the rest, I think, going towards guardrails on Walton. So that's pretty much an update on projects. We will have Blackburn Children's Doll will be here September 28th, I believe, for a week to pull our year-end financials together and submit those to Mickey Ellis, CPA, to conduct our 2019-2020 fiscal year-end audit as required by the Comptroller's Office. We have paid out a lot of money this past week. We did do a $3,500 check to McGill Associates, and that was on Amphitheater. $8,328 to Tyson Hampton. That was on the RW Estates Bridge. We paid $14,866 to the EMS, which is what they requested. And that's a little over half. And then we also got a very large bill for Key Partners for our liability insurance, which is $17,000. We have not paid that one yet. We will pay it this week, but you will probably. So we did pay out quite a bit. That's in this month of August. And I think that's pretty much all I had.
Thank you. All right. We will down now to the financial.
Okay. I really don't have these in a good order for you all. I thought, I looked through it and I thought, I really should have had it in a better order, but I put on.
You got it.
What? Well. But anyway, on the general fund balance sheet, our cash and CD, certificate of deposit, we're a little over $1 million and $18,616. And on the liability side of that, as you know, that some of that money is restricted. The Snyder Trust is restricted, and we have capital projects that I'm showing as being committed because the board did vote on that, which makes it committed capital projects for the government grant, the $108,000, just down in the bottom. We have restricted street aid of $92,000. Of course, that paving is going to come out of that. It's going to start eating into that. And that's pretty much, we're unappropriated at $893,000. So we've got a pretty good cash balance right now. Of course, you know, the kitchen is balance sheet for that is really a special revenue fund, in and out from the general fund. And then we've got the balance sheet for the Drake Fund. That's about all $27 in there. That's all that we pay for that fund on their balance sheet. We're showing, and this is the first month, the July month, to show our revenue budget of $2,581,720 for the statement of revenues and expenditures. And for the month, we took in $235,479, but that's that $108,000 coming in from Governor Lee that made that as high as it is. And of course, that money has not been spent yet. Year to date being the same, it's the first month. The expenditures were at $64,887. So the net income for the month was $107,591. Going to Mountain Harvest Kitchen. Of course, their budgeted revenue and expenses are equal. And in July, they took in $2,321 in MHK revenue, and the expenditures were $8,141. So it's a $5,820 loss for the month of July, and same for the other day. No activity in the drug fund, showing the budget of $5,000. Then we get to local option sales tax for the first month, July, $68,761. Compared to the previous year of $62,886. But again, this is such an unusual situation to have these stimulus checks out and people that are unemployed drawing more money than what they would make if they were working. I think they're drawing $875 a week. So it kind of skews things. For the previous year, 1920, was $858,823, which was an $88,506 increase from the 1819 year on local option sales tax. Go on over to state shared, we took in $28,220, which is almost mirrored for the previous year, not that much more. For the 1920 year, we took in $329,112, which is a $9,137 increase over the 18-19 year. So we're doing really well. So it's just this year is going to be unknown. We just don't know.
Maybe half the year.
And then
Hang on for the
hang
ride.
on for the ride.
All right, thank you, Debbie. I have a motion approved. I have a motion and a second to approve the financials. Any further discussion? Call for question.
Alderman Boyd. Alderman Radford.
Yes.
Alderman Linville.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hobson.
Yes.
Mayor Lynch.
Yes. Okay, now to item 15, which is review of the citizens' comments previously submitted. Do we have any?
No.
All right, we'll go to item 16, which is questions and comments from public view and electronic. Do we have any of that?
We do have someone that would like to speak. His name's Frosty Levy.
All right. Okay. Go ahead, Mr.
Is
Levy.
it Foster Levy?
Frosty Levy.
Levy. Frosty Levy.
Okay, I'm asking, oh, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So it looks like, at least in our part of the county, which is North Unicoi, Whispering Pines and Marbleton area, Urban Utilities has stepped up the use of herbicides. And it seems like that they were up here about 2 years ago and did a tremendous amount of cutting. And this year on our property, they came and they slashed things down, left them in place, and then herbicided several areas and just left things to die. We maintain our property. We've always maintained it, and other people do the same. I'm left to clean it up each time they do that. But now what we're seeing also is, rather than mechanical control of vegetation, they're herbiciding large sections of roadside. They're herbiciding in the creek. If you come up Whispering Pines Road or go down into Marbleton, you can see whole sections that are turning brown. And these areas are easy to reach once every 10 years or so. If they would mechanically cut down the trees that are going to be too big or getting too big, that could easily be done. And so I'd like to ask the board to consider a resolution or some kind of motion to put an end to this wanton spraying of herbicide, to stop spraying herbicide in the waterways, and to stop doing this kind of thing where landowners are maintaining properties, but they come on and spray herbicide, slash down, and don't clean up.
I think this is being done by the urban utilities. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what. Waiting on the brush, we got the same problem.
Yeah. Most how would we handle something like that?
Well, if our utilities doing this within the right of ways that they have, right of ways they use, it would be a part of their mandate, part of their policy to address it. I don't know where this gentleman's utility service comes from, whether he's a customer or not, but certainly it's something that he could make known to that board. Something also we could review and have to write a letter about it, because it's something that's inappropriate within the town, but it wouldn't be something that we could control.
really, we could write a letter, call their attention to it, that we had.
We ought to take a look at what's talking about, see how it affects things. But if they're within their proper right of ways, they're probably not going to
May not see who's talking.
We've checked on it before, but you might want to call our own utilities, but we've checked on it, same thing happened. Where they're cutting down, leaving the brush and doing all that, and they're spraying that, but they, legally, I don't think we can do anything about that.
If they're within the
You're on the
right of
right of
ways,
way.
and of course, you know, you have, if they're a independent municipal corporation, that has authority of its own by statute, so you might want to, check into either their boards and figure out what signs are. We can look into it too.
Well,
First person, we've had,
I have spoken with Irwin Utilities, and they will no longer herbicide our property. But I think we have a bigger problem in the town and in the county, where they weren't spraying all this herbicide before, but now they're spraying herbicide, they're spraying right into the creeks. And as far as I'm concerned, this is just putting poison into our waterways. Now, one person can just do so much. And so the most I can do is get them agreed to not spray herbicide on my little piece of property. But this is going right into Buffalo Creek, which is spring-fed, and then it's going right into the river, and it's just something that's unnecessary.
Well, so the point I'm making is they're governed by a board too, and you have a right to give information to that board. And I realize you probably contacted our utilities already, but you can give information and try to influence that board the same way that you have, expressed your opinion here. And there are things that we can do, of course, in expressing our opinion, but we can take a look at it. Appreciate you calling.
Well, I think if the town would express their wish not to have as much herbicide sprayed, I know the person I spoke with, his name's Kip, I couldn't remember the last name, but he sounded like someone who was reasonable, you could work with him. I think the town would just need to ask that they minimize the use of herbicide in areas where they can just do mechanical control.
Debbie, let's get the guys that we go up there and take a look at that. And also, do we need a motion or anything for her to write a letter to them? Lois, would you do that? Sure. Write a letter to them about our concerns. And I started to say a minute ago, Mr. Levy's not the only person who's talked to me about that. I've had some, especially the beekeepers. People, bee business are concerned about this because, they think it's killing the bees, honeybees. So, we can at least look into it, see what we can do.
Thank you.
Okay, whatever the case may be. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody else want to make a comment?
I don't have anybody raising their hand. No one's unmuting themselves, so I think we're good.
Pretty good. Okay, announcements. Women's suffrage. How we do that?
Yeah, we did that.
You did it.
Any other announcements?
I think they're finishing up on this road back here this week. I think this week will be the end of that. Testing the gas lines.
Now, with our idea of paving this back here, because when they do this through down here, there's gonna be a lot of traffic on this road back here. And, it's kind of a dangerous place too, going in and out of 107 there. Probably have to really watch that.
We'll be paving and speed bumps, 3 speed bumps.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of speed.
Any other announcements? Okay, could I have a motion to
Motion
adjourn?
adjourned.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Stand adjourned. Thank you.
What's for something?
Aye.